Infill support. When to use it, how much to use, and why. We're going to go over that right now and teach you all about it. So stay tuned. Okay, so I've got a bunch of examples on the table here, and we're going to go over it um, from something that needs no support, that printed fine on its own, to something that needed a lot of support, regular support, tree support, and very little support, and then infill and the do's and don'ts. So let's. I'm going to start with the Enterprise D because the support is falling off, and if I move it again, it's probably going to leave the starship. So I'm going to make some room here. We're gonna talk about that one first. Okay, so let me get these over here. We're just going to move some things around here so we can talk about the Enterprise here first. And this is for you non-Star Trek fans. Let's see, I need the camera. Okay, so we just got to move this. Let me put this up here. And I'm going to put this over here for now. Okay, all right. That should work. Okay, so what we're talking about is the Enterprise, and that's what it looks like when it prints. Okay, and then here's the finished product. And if you look up here in the camera here, you can see what it looks like and how nice it came out. It's very, and I'm going to switch the camera back and forth to give you a close up here so you can see. Now, some of these lines you see in here, mostly you see these right here. That's the support that's inside, and we're going to look at that in detail too. Okay, so what I'm talking about there is this. This is, and I'm going to switch back here again. Okay, so this is the support, this infill. Okay, and that's 15%, and that's way too much for this particular model. You don't need anywhere near that much, but that's what this is, and that's what we're seeing the effects through the skin of the Enterprise. Okay, so that's what we're going to go over. So the first thing is, I got this off Thingiverse, and believe it or not, they wanted it printed in this position, upside down. Okay, and what that did is it was a lot of support. When I sliced it, it said it was like a 45% support material. That's almost half of a roll of what I'm going to use to print this is going to just be support, which was ridiculous. And what that looks like is this. Okay, and I'll switch the camera again. Okay, so this was all support. Okay, so they wanted the Enterprise to build just like this on top of that support. Okay, and it was going to use 45% of the support, and the whole top of the Enterprise here would look like this, because this is exactly what was on the bed, and all of this was going to grow until it touched the surface of this upside down, which was going to destroy the finish. And this has got a pretty nice finish on it, even though it's, you can see some effects of the infill. It still has a very nice, look to it. Okay, it's pretty smooth, and the detail that's important is there, and it came out pretty nice. So I immediately stopped the print when I saw this. I said, "There's no way I'm doing this. We got to find a different way." So then I tried printing it in this position, and I used a slicer. And guys, what you can do is um, you go back to preview, you go back to prepare, and it'll undo. Well, it won't undo it, but it'll let you make changes again, and then slice it again. Just keep slicing it. Make simple changes, a little change here, a little change there. I try to do one change at a time, so I know when I slice it, what I did was, you know, if I do more than one thing, I won't know which one of the things I did when I changed is what caused it to get the effect I wanted. So I usually try to just do one at a time, and until you get used to it, then you'll figure it out. So in this position, it was going to use 71% of support. Okay, 15% infill, 71% support, because now we're going to print around the stand and all the way up from the stand sitting on the bed all the way up to here. And that was going to be a ridiculous amount of wasted support that we didn't need. So I didn't want to do that. So then I ended up standing it up, okay, in this position, which is what you're seeing here. Okay, so here's how it was printed. It's standing up. It's using this kind of support material. Okay, and I'm going to get a close-up of this. This is the standard support. Okay, and it's just basically a zigzag pattern. It's very squishy. Okay, so it's not really a lot of material. It looks like a lot of material, but it's really not a lot of material. And then right at the top here, where this was used on the mask, and we're going to get to that. But basically, that's what you're seeing here on the Enterprise. Is these pieces here is what this is. You know, standing like this. Okay. So the reason I'm starting with this is because when I move this, that first one, the one that's covering the shuttle bay, is about to fall off. Okay. So let me see if I can get it to stay back on there. Okay. So, so where does it use support? Okay, remember, guys, you're starting from the build plate and building up. It doesn't matter if it's a bed slinger and the bed stays at the bottom and the extruder goes up, or if you're starting at the top and the extruder stays at the top and the bed falls down. It's still starting from the bed and building up. And because gravity is always on, you have to have something for the material to lay on. Now, if it's laying on the bed, you know, this, for instance, is laying on the bed. Okay, so it can print this, and this will stick to the bed, and then you print off of this, and that's fine. But something like so why would you need support? Well, okay, so if we're looking at this, okay, there's no way the extruder can put something on. If there's no support under here, it can't print it. Okay, the extruder is going to make a pass where this is supposed to be, and since there's nothing laying there, we don't have any support under it. You're just going to have spaghetti laying on the bed. It's just going to fall because you need something for it to stick to, and there's nothing there because it prints on top of whatever's there. Okay, so when this is on the bed, it prints on top of this. But if it's not, then it's got to have support, and that's what we're looking at here. You stand it on end. Now the first print of this standing on end like this was this one. And it only printed 13, that was with 13% support. So we went from 45 in this position to 75 or 71 if I printed it in this position. But in this position, standing on its back or standing on its nacelles, this was 13%. That wasn't quite enough. Okay, the support only went to inside the I'm assuming these are the impulse engines, okay, that are right here on the saucer section. This right here and right over here. Okay, so the support stopped right here on this edge. And let me get on the camera here and I'll show you. Okay, so it stopped right here at this edge, right here. There was no support here. Okay, and it failed because this was too much of an overhang with no support under it for it to print. So it failed and I had to start over. So that's why this one, doesn't have any, it stopped printing because when it got to here, there was nothing for it to, that's when the engines were, and there was nothing for it to lay on because the support didn't go far enough. So if you look at what we got here, I don't know if I can get that on the camera, but I'll try without knocking that off. Okay. So this is 14%. That's only 1% more. And that brought all the way out to here instead of it stopping here. At the inside the motor there, it brought it all the way out to here, and that was enough. From here on, it was able to, without any more support, it was able to continue the print around and finish. So 1% more, that's all it took, 1%. From 13% a fail here, okay, to 14%, and it worked, and it did a perfect print. Okay, so that's what you're looking at. And again, this is 15% infill on this particular model, and it's way too much for this. This does not need that at all, and I'll get into that some more. But this would have been fine on probably. You need some support, and I'll tell you why. Because right here is the radar dome or the saucer dome, whatever they call that thing. What do they call that? I forget what they call it, but it's a dish in the front of the Enterprise, and that has to sit on something. So there has to be some support. It doesn't need quite this much. Probably 5%, 10% would have been plenty. 15 is way too much, and we'll get into that some more. But I'll turn it. I'll show you again. So that dome right there it needed something to sit on. So there had to be some support in there. Something. It couldn't be hollow. It had to have some support. That's really the only reason we needed support inside this Enterprise, is to accommodate that. Now, the support on the outside, there was one or more places where there was support needed. Okay, so on the side of the stand, right here, see the NCC 1701D. Okay. All right. Well, if it's sitting on its back like this, that's suspended in the air. All right. And it's going to start with the N and work its way up. And we needed support for that. So there's one little column of support that broke off, but it's still here. And I'm going to rotate this and show you. This right here. Okay, so this little stick of support was right here underneath the 1701. Trying to do that. Basically like that. Okay, and that was to support the lettering so it would print. And that's all we needed that for. So that one little stick there did that. Of course, this here is supporting the stand. There's a little bit down here at the bottom under the nacelles that's supporting, it's supporting the wing area here. That's why there's all this support under it. Okay, and then the nacelle, it's sitting on the table itself, but there's a little bit of support around it as well. And so this whole section here is support to get to the engineering section, higher up on the craft, and the stand. And then after that, once it got to here, to the radar dish, it didn't need support anymore. It printed the rest all the way up with no more support. And that's the reason I printed it in this position. Not only did it do a better job printing, I don't have any of this infill to pull off of it, or the support, not near as much. It came off easy, and it did a perfect job. So, so this was the finished product, and it's nice and clean. I didn't have to do any cleanup on this at all. I just pulled the support off, and this is how it came out. So a beautiful print, absolutely beautiful. Just I can't fault this one at all. It's just beautiful. The texture's good. It's smooth. It's clean. The nacelle detail is all here, all the way down, all the way to the back. There is a little bit of problem in the back there, but we can sand that and clean it up. Because it was sitting on the bed, so there's a little bit of texture there. This little bit here will clean right up. Just a little sanding, clean that right up. But very, very good print. Okay, so that's the reason we needed support and why I put it in the upright position. Okay, it printed the best in this position rather than upside down in this position, which would have ruined the top surface here. This would have looked terrible. And sitting on its stand like this was 71% waste. And it would have made the bottom look terrible. But it's the bottom. You really wouldn't have seen it as long as it's sitting on a stand, But printing it in this position here, it's clean all the way around. The bottom's clean, beautiful, smooth. The stand's clean. There's no affecting on the stand. It just came out beautiful. So that was the right call on that one. Okay, so that's why I printed it standing up. All right, so now I'm going to move this out of the way so we can get to the next one. So we'll just pull this over here. And obviously, because this one already fell off, and the one on the shuttle bay is falling off, they come off pretty easy. Okay, so what's next? Let's look at Millennium Falcon. This guy, whoever did this, has already fixed it so that he took some liberties. The original Millennium Falcon did not have probably I'm guessing. Let me go here. This area here was probably straight up and down, and he put a 45 on it. Okay, and the same thing here. This probably has more angle to it. This has angle to it. All these things have 45 edges, and the reason for that is it gives the thing something to build from. Okay, as it's printing, this needed no support. Now it was standing on end like this, and when it gets to here, I'll pick this one. When it gets to this 45 right here, it prints at the 45, and then the next layer up, it comes out a little bit, and comes out a little bit. And you don't need any support because it can handle that. And that's why these shapes, he took some liberties to clean this up so that it would print without support. and it printed with almost no support. There was like 2%. There was, I think there was one piece that came right up here on this part here. There was a thin strip right here that came up and supported right there, and that's it. That's the only support that was on this. Now, that's the way I sliced it. Also, you can add or to subtract support as needed, and I tend to, because I know my particular printer can handle a very high degree of deflection without support. So because it's the K1C, and I know how well it prints high angles, so I knew I could cut the support way down, because I think the original, it had support coming up, I think under here and maybe under these here. Um, these two, this area here and here. I think support might have been there. I forget now, but I cut the support way back until all I had was the minimum down at the bottom here, and it printed perfect. And I've printed several Millennium Falcons, and they've all come out perfect. So so in this situation, we didn't need any support. Okay. All right. So what's next? Let's look at the Velociraptor. Okay. So here's the Velociraptor, and everything I printed except for this one car, and we'll get to that in a minute, is maximum size. I used the entire. I have a 250 high Z area, and I maximized it on every one of my prints except this car, and I will get to that. And the reason I do that, for several reasons. One, I want a bigger piece. I'm not trying to, if I was making small stuff for like an HO railroad, something like that, you'd have to make it to size, and that's fine. It'll do that. But in this case, I wanted to maximize my sizes as much as I could. So everything has been printed to the maximum I can do it, except this, and I'll get to that. So how did I print this? All right, well, same thing. I've got very little infill inside it. It's almost hollow, but there's a little bit of infill in it. Okay, but if I printed it in a position, like for instance, him standing, there would have to be support through his entire belly here, underneath, under his chin, in his mouth here, under the tail, all the way out here. So there would be columns of either of this stuff, to get under his chin like this, under the tail here. It would have to have all of this supporting it, or trees. Now, I like the trees the best, but they're not always the best choice. You have to pick the right one for the right job. Trees aren't always the answer. It definitely wasn't the answer on the Enterprise. It didn't want to do it right, or the car, and I'll get to that in a minute. But it worked great on the Velociraptor. And the reason I printed it in this position. Okay? So he's on his back, straight up. So the only contact with the bed in the tree form is his tail's touching the bed right there. That's the only part of him actually touching the bed, is his tail right there. So you take this and you turn it this way, like this. Okay, and that's what you get. And the tail's touching the bed. There's some support around the tail, but very little. Again, this is a very small amount of support because I used the tree method. So the tree is going up and grabbing areas that need support, under his, his shin here, his back of his leg, back of his other leg here, his hands, his front claws here and here, the rear claws, all this stuff needed support. The back of his head. But where I didn't need any support, which was crucial for what I wanted, I didn't have to have any support in his mouth. That's why he's on his back like this. and this was the most economical way to get it. But I had to slice it a bunch of different times and change the percentage of film of support to keep it out of his mouth, because I didn't want to have to try to tear support out of his mouth. That would have been, he's got tiny little teeth in there, and it would have destroyed. I probably would have pulled the teeth out. It just wouldn't have come clean good, and it would have ruined, the beauty of his mouth, and his face. So I didn't want to do that. So that's why I picked this position, and this has worked fantastic. Um, so that's how I did it, and I used the tree support this time. And they have an option in the Creality for a slim tree. In other words, the thickness of this tree is super thin. Again, to save filament, and they even warn you that it's experimental. So, but it works fine. I've used it several times now, and it works fine. So that's the reason he's printed on his back with his mouth up. I didn't want any filament in his mouth, and I wanted to minimize the amount of waste. So that's why he's printed in this position, and that has worked great. Now, Creality's printer, they don't have the connection between their tree and the main body of the print down to a science yet, because these tree are grabbing the product way too much. This is a fight to get this off. You can do it, and it will come off, but you really have to be careful and take your time, or it'll rip a hole right through where the tree attached to the leg or whatever. It'll just tear a hole in the leg because it won't release. So you have to be very careful. I'm sure they're going to work on that and get that straightened out, but this is how I did this one. So that's why he's on his back. Okay, so let's get rid of that, and let's go on to the next one. All right, so I think we're going to do the car next. Let's do the car. Okay, so I printed this Dodge Hellcat 3 times. This was the first time. And I looked at it. Now you can print it two ways. You can print the cars and the wheels separate, or you can print it all in one. And this is the all-in-one. Okay, I printed it all in one, and I printed it on its wheels facing, and as you can see here, there's a lot of effect here that's not on here. Okay, I mean, if we put the back here like this is all layer lines, because I think it was printed at 0.2. If it was been printed at 0.06, 0.08, it would have probably been a lot less, but still there. Here on the roof, let me get back in the camera here. The hood. There's a lot of affecting here. Okay, so that I didn't like that solution. So, and I didn't anticipate that. I'll be honest, I didn't anticipate it when I printed this one first. I printed this one first, standing on its back like this, because I can make it bigger. Not a lot bigger, but it's bigger. And I'm going to show you what that meant also. But if I put the two side by side, okay, so it's that much longer in the nose, and then the width, it's about that much wider. Okay, and so it made it bigger. Not a lot bigger, but enough bigger that the mirrors stayed on. Okay, and this is one of those things, again, if you're printing something that's going to have delicate areas, you want to maximize the size as much as possible. So the pedestals on this print, and it wasn't that much smaller, but the pedestals were so small that the mirrors wouldn't stay on. They broke instantly. I mean, it wasn't even fighting to try to get the filament, the support off. There just wasn't enough of a pedestal for the mirror to stay on. Both mirrors broke right off immediately, but they stayed on this one. It was just a little bit bigger, but the mirrors are on, and they're on good. I mean, this is not even like flexy. The mirrors are very solid on here. So that little bit of difference in size made a huge difference in the um, in the stability of the mirrors. And as you can see, the hood is pretty smooth. The roof is pretty smooth. You can actually see the sunroof in here. You know, the sunroof is in effect there. You can see the trunk lid and the spoiler. So there's a lot of detail. Even the gas cap was on the side over here. So it came out pretty good, but it wasn't perfect. This was my mistake. All right. So again, infill. How much do you need? When do you use it? When don't you use it? I said this was too much. Well, it was too much for this, but I needed more than no infill. This is hollow. There's no infill in here, none. And this printed in this position. This looks terrible, but my grill work is pretty good. You know, there's a grill, headlights, fog lights, lower grill, spoiler. It's not great, but it's pretty good. Here, it's not there. It's destroyed because there was nothing. Again, there's got to be something for the filament to lay on, and since this was hollow and it was standing up this way, when it got to the grill, okay, there was nothing there for it to attach filament to. So the filament's just falling as it's trying to print the grill. It's just falling into the air, into the car, into the empty void because there's nothing in here. This is hollow. So this one had some infill in it, but not much. You see, this was like 2%, 2 or 3%. And you see, it's just a big square box is the support inside the infill. Instead of this, with that tiny little, you know, checker pattern, it was just big boxes. And that is fine for the car itself, but, you know, but it wasn't good enough. I don't think this would have worked if I tried printing it again standing on it. So I did. And this time I did use this much, you know, there's this much filament infill in this car. Okay? So, and here's where the support is. So there's a support, there's one, and this is about to fall off too, just like on the Enterprise where it was holding up the 17 NCC 1701 on the stand. This is just holding up the antenna on the roof. This little tiny antenna that's on the roof here. That piece of support is underneath it like this. So that coming off the bed, it came all the way up and held that, because again, this can't print there's nothing under it in this position, so there had to be something there for it to print on, and that's what we're looking at here. Okay, there's the antenna right there, and this support is sitting there so that it would print the antenna. So that's all that's there for. But there's a lot of there's 15% infill here, and look how beautiful this grill came out. Okay, so the grill, the headlights, I know it's hard to see here. I'll try to get it in the light better. Yeah, it's really hard to see. But it's the headlights and the grill are perfect. The lower grill's perfect. Hang on a second. Let me put a flashlight on it. Maybe that'll help. Oops. Yeah. There we go. Okay, so you see You see how good the grill and the bumper cover, everything looks really good here. Um, Trying to get the light in a good spot. So you can see the headlights there. There's headlights on the other side. The lower, the spoiler, the lower grill. So because there was something for it to print on in this position, straight up. So it came out great. All right. And this one's got, a smooth. The hood's pretty smooth. The roof's smooth. Again, you can see the sunroof is there, although this orange is hiding a lot of it, but it's there. Let me see if I can. Maybe this will help again. Yeah, there you go. So now you can see the. Try to get light in here to show you the sunroof. Yeah, there you can see it there. Okay, so all the details there. This is nice and smooth. The trunk lid's nice and smooth. There is some effect on the back, but that it's the lesser two evils. So there's going to be some sanding and filling in the back here when I tear off the support to clean up the back, because it was standing on its back and all of this support is going to affect it. But the rest of the car looks good. The sides look good. And I printed the wheels separate. And what's good about that is they're removable. Okay, so it prints the hole right there, and then when it prints the wheel, there's a post, and the post fits. You have to size it yourself. That's a little tricky, but now you can. And now, if you buy or print another vehicle that has different wheels, you can resize that wheel and you can change the wheels. You can pull that off, put a different one on. Gives you that that ability. So like I said, so that one was printed without the wheels separately. And this one was printed as everything together with the wheels already on it. These wheels are not removable. Now, in this position, if you look at the detail in the wheels, it's terrible. Okay, there's a lot of infill in here, and it broke the spokes on the top. It just did a horrible job. Okay, so I don't recommend printing the car in this position, sitting down like this, standing on its back. Okay. All right, and then the wheels. Okay, so how do you print the wheels? Do you print them in this position? Do you print them in this position? Or do you print them in this position? Okay, well, I printed them first in this position, and this is what you get. You get a solid, filled in. So now you're going to need to take cutters and try to dig all that out, and it takes hours. So that was a bad idea. But if you get in here and start pulling, grab a hold of it and start yanking, you can start tearing this out of there. But it's a royal pain to get all of this out. Now, I'm only going to do this for a minute just to give you an example of how hard it is to tear all this infill out, the support material. All right, see, you don't want to print the wheel in this position. It's a bad idea. Okay, it's just impossible to get this stuff out of here. It takes forever. I spent hours cleaning up this one, and it might look pretty good, but really there's a lot of damage to the spokes that would need cleaning up, and I had to dig all of it out all the way down to the rotor. And the rotor's in there, and there's a caliper on the rotor. That detail is there, but it wasn't worth the 3 hours per wheel to dig all this out. And this was printed the wrong size anyway. And on the back, you can see the rotor and the caliper was all printed because this was in this position. So this is all on top, printing down. So this part is perfect. This part here, not so much, because this was hanging. So all that, this side of the rotor and caliper had to be sitting on the support. And that made it not come out so well. All right? So you don't want to do this. I can't, this is so hard to get this out of here. I mean, I can't even get a good start. You're literally just going to nip at it like this and try to do it without ruining the spokes. You know, and it was just ridiculous. So I'm going to try to get a little bit out of the center here. Trying to get a good chunk to come out, but it's not happening. So this is the support that's over the center cap area. And it even printed the lug nuts. That's how detailed this is. The lug nuts are visible. But they're so clogged up with all of this support material that you got to dig out to get to the wheel. It just isn't worth it. Okay, it's just layers and layers of this. You got to dig out of here, and it literally takes hours because once you get it off the face of the wheel, now you have to get it out in between the wheel and the rotor just to expose the rotor, and just a bad idea. This just did not work. Wasn't at all happy with this, and the amount of time I spent, digging it out. And I'm still right now. I'm still not to the lug nuts. I can't get down in there. I mean, I can, but there's still this filament is just not letting go of the actual wheel as good as it should. So you really got to fight with this to try to get anywhere, to get down to the part you want. It's quite an ordeal. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. But you see that this is what you're going to do. You're going to have to dig all of that out, and it's a royal pain in the butt. So, and this wheel's way too big. I didn't destroy these or throw them away because I thought, well, maybe I'll print the car bigger, and use these wheels one day. I don't know. So, but we're going to put those aside and get rid of this. Okay, and now, so I printed the wheel in this position. Okay, now I haven't done anything to this. This is the way it came off the printer. And some of them came out really good. This one came out pretty good, actually. You can see the lug nuts in there, and you can see the rotor, and the rotor's in there. And I'm probably going to paint the rotor. I'm going to get a thin paintbrush, and I'm going to paint the rotor, probably the caliper, and the spokes here. I don't like black wheels, so I'm going to paint this all silver. But I've got a black tire. Now here's the support. Okay, very similar to the support on here. Okay, but on the back side of the wheel, not on the front. And this is going to release much easier. So, and I left this out so I could show you. So you just go around it a little at a time like this. You can hear it cracking. Okay, and you just keep working around here to get as much of it off in one piece as you can. Okay, and so there, that's pretty much everything that's, to the tire. All right, the tire is exposed now. And the back side of the tire is not great, but the front side looks really good. The tire, this actually really looks like a rubber tire. It really looks good. Um, and now what's left is what's holding, supporting the rotor. All right. Well, now you just grab it with this and you pull. And most of this will come out of there. The last two times it came out in one piece. Okay, so what you end up with, which isn't bad, is you have the rotor's in there, but the back side of the rotor has that effect because it was, such a rough surface, being supported by this, that it leaves, marks in the rotor. Now the rotor on this side's perfect. It's nice and smooth. It's actually a drilled and slotted rotor, and if you look closely in there, you can see the drill marks. So this, because again, gravity was on, and the wheel was printed in this position, so the filament is laying down. On the underside here, it was hanging from, laying on this. And this is what happens when you do that. So, but that printed out beautiful. Very happy with that. It was that easy to pull all of the infill or the support off of it. You can sand this a little bit if you want to smooth that out, but remember, it's on the it goes on the inside of the car. Okay, it goes in here like this, so you don't see it. You slide it in, and it's in there, and there you go. There's a hole in the back too, so you can put it, front or back. Now, one more thing about this too. You see the big gap here between the car inside here and the wheel. And the wheel's hanging out of the wheel opening here a little bit. It's not completely under the fender. Well, you can shorten this pin, which is what I did on the other two. You shorten the pin, it'll go in a little farther, and you can get the wheels inside the fender. Okay. I'm trying to get it, positioned here so you can see. Let me try it this way. Yeah, you see, so that wheel is under the fender. There's a little bit of lip here, and the wheel's underneath because I shortened the pin. And there's more to go. I could go farther. There's still some room in there. So I can shorten it some more if I want to get it tucked even more. But you have that option to do that. Okay, so that's why you need support on something like this. Okay, and again, you got to play with the amount of support until you get, when you're slicing it, just keep reslicing it, test it, try different settings, keep playing with it until you get a setting you think you like, and then go with that one. Don't just slice it and settle for whatever comes out. Play with it. Make a decision. Change your mind. Give yourself some options. But this one's coming out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this particular car and the wheels. So now I can't put this one on the back yet. But all right, so let's get back to this for a minute. So the reason it put this here, okay, is it thought it needed it to support this part of the wheel opening, because this is, the underside. So there's nothing under it to support it. So it put these here to support here. Now it didn't put them on the top ones because I told it to only off the build plate. Otherwise, it would have put filament from here to here, and I didn't want that. And it doesn't really need it. There is a little bit of effect in here that can be fixed, but if you look here, you see there's a little bit of, you know, damage, if you want to call it, you know, because it was, you know, printing in air, you know, a little bit. Now the other side's fine, you know, the bottom, what was, you know, the downside of it here is fine. Now this is fine. But since this is the part that was in the air, we've got a little bit of minor damage there. Not a big deal. Nothing I was going to worry about, so that's why I didn't bother with it. All right, but so it's trying to fix that effect, but it didn't. It still did it. But I'm going to see if I can tear this off. Okay, so that came off pretty clean. And now you can see right here, this is going to need a little bit of cleanup. And it actually damaged it slightly. I could probably sand that out, but yeah, there's a little bit of a nick there where the support. So that's you sometimes you don't want to use support because sometimes it does that. It you know, just like I told you on the Velociraptor, it tore a hole in his leg. This tore a little divot in the body. Now I could probably sand that out to disguise it, and it'll be fine. But just so you know, these kind of things happen. You got to be very careful taking it off the mirror here, because it can, you know, it might not come clean from the mirror. It might try to pull the mirror off. So you can, let's see if I can do it here. Sometimes I just get in here with this and try to start cutting it to see if I can disrupt it enough so it'll let go of the mirror. Yeah, I just take your time, guys. I can't stress it enough. Don't get in a rush. Just be extra careful, because you don't want to damage it. You know, after, you know, a 4 or 5 hour print, and then you go to take it off and you tear the mirror off of it because you weren't being careful. You're gonna kill yourself. You'll be so mad at yourself because you did that. So just take it nice and easy. Don't force it. Okay, so I got it off the car, and I think it came off clean. So I'm going to see if I can just kind of cut it away from the mirror, and then we'll try to trim it from the mirror separately. There we go. Okay, so that came off, and there's just a little bit of effect here. We can trim that off. You can even try to pull it off if you want to wiggle it. And same thing down here. Okay, so that came out pretty clean. A little sanding maybe. Hang on a minute, let me see if I can clean that off a little more. Yeah, that came right off. Yeah. So there, it's pretty clean. You know, there's a little tiny bit there that we can sand off or trim with the nippers, but that came off clean, and it didn't tear the mirror off the car. And perfect. Okay, so you got a good mirror, didn't tear it off. They didn't leave a mark on the side of the car where it was semi-attached right here, but it came right off. And there you have it. So that's how you use your supports to support the mirror. Otherwise, the mirror wouldn't print, because it has to be something there for it to print, you know, to hold it. And so these mirrors come out beautiful. So I'm pretty happy with this. This came out really well. Okay, now, and this is, again, because the grill work came out so good on this one is because I got 15% infill in here, which makes the car quite heavy when you feel the difference between, you know, this empty one and this one's got all that infill in it. It's considerably heavier, but that's okay. You know, sometimes you just have to do it. You know, if you wanna get a nice print, you know, you got to do it. Okay, so the last one I'm going to show you is this piece here is from a Iron Man mask, and so I've done the mask several different times, and this again, you have to just keep trying different things. I printed it where these pieces are laying flat on the table, like this, and it was at that angle, and that left bad effect here because this is getting horizontal, and you're starting to get this effect, you know, the roof of the car mess. Okay. So that didn't work so good. So then I tried standing it all the way forward like this. So now this is vertical. And this is all going to print okay because it can handle this angle. But the tree attached itself to the eyebrow here, and I'll show you what that looks like. Right here. Okay, so if you look at the eyebrow, let me change camera here. So if you look at the eyebrow here, you see all of this mess here, the big divot there, because the tree attached itself, instead of inside the eye here, inside the lip here, it attached itself to the eyebrow out here and ruined the eyebrow. So this thing's a mess all the way across. So that didn't work. Okay. So finally, I ended up printing it about it, you know, this angle, you know, where it was, and I kept playing with the angle like this until I got not all the support was on the back side of the mask. And the other reason for that is because sometimes when stuff hits the front of the mask, you get damage. And let's get back to here. Because while it's printing, before the tree that's coming up next to the mask actually attaches to the eyebrow or wherever it's going to attach, you know, in here or wherever it's going to attach, all right, it was banging against the side of the you know, every time and a bed slinger would have really made a mess. But it put a big dent in it right there. I'm trying to get that in the picture. Yeah, there you can see it there. Okay. And then the same thing on the other side. Okay. Here, you see all the damage here in that area there. All right, and that's from the tree slapping against this as it's moving. And if it was a bed slinger, it would have really been a damage because of the, you know, and then again, this was that position where it did this at the top here. This isn't even, there's filament missing here. So I would have to fill that with some kind of filler. And it's not missing over here, but you can see it's not even tight. It's loose. And this has zero infill in it. And that makes an oil can real easy. I didn't see you. You see I can squish it in and it just keeps, and what's going to happen there is the layer lines are going to separate and it's going to tear. So you don't want that either. Okay, so this, I got it the angle I wanted it at, and then this was on the inside the back where it doesn't matter. Okay, so this was inside here like this, and that's how I printed it to get a good clean face that didn't have any damage on it. So again, you just have to, this isn't the only infill. All right, there was this, but then there was, it was in the eyes on the back side and only in here. Okay, in the inside here. Okay, there's a little bit of effect on the outside here. This isn't the one I printed. The one I printed is clean. Let me see if I can find that one here. Hold on. I think this is in here. Yeah. So you see how clean this came out here? There's no damage to the to the eyebrow. That's nice and clean all the way across the front. So there's no damage because all of the tree material attached itself to this edge here and broke clean, and it was coming down on the back side, on the inside of the mask, not on the outside. So the mask was in, probably about that position, and it grabbed the inside of the eyebrow and went straight down the back side, inside here. There was nothing on the outside. And that's the cleanest print I've had as far as damage goes, because this came out nice and clean. All right, so that's going to do it. I hope this helped. I think I went over everything, as far as, why you want support, where you want support, when you need it, how much of it you need. The infill is just another, it's designed for strength in the mask, in the car, whatever. Sometimes you don't need it. The car doesn't need it for strength. This is hollow and it's solid. I can't squish this. But like I showed you, when it came time to print the grill, because there was nothing inside for it to print to, there is no grill. It destroyed the finish of the bumper cover and the upper and lower grill, the headlights, all that is just destroyed because there was nothing for it to lay on. And it got this mess. This horrible looking, just mess. Okay. And then versus, if with infill, you get at least, and this isn't clean either because this is the one I printed laying down, on its wheels. But you get the gist of the grill work is in there. The fog light is in there. The headlights are in there. The grill is in there. It's there. And that's what this is, but it's hard to see it on the orange. But yeah, the headlights and the grill work are pretty good, top and bottom, and much better than the other one because there's infill in there. So the infill acts as support from the inside. In that circumstance, normally that's not what support's used for, but there are occasions when it is, and on those occasions is when you're going to have to use it. So you don't have to put a lot of support in something that doesn't need any support in it. Pretty much, the Enterprise really it needed a little bit of support in the nacelles to make the top here. And that's about it. And then for the dish here. Okay. So it needed a little bit of support inside for that and that. It didn't need it for any part of the sausage section. This is too thin. Of course, it would have oil canned like the mask does, but that that really isn't that big a deal. But this dish would have never printed worth a crap here. This dish here would have never printed without support in there. That would have been a total total, like the grill work in the car. It would have been a total failure there. And the tops of these nacelles would probably not look very good either, um, without some kind of fill. So the fill saved that. Um, but that's what they're for, guys. That's why you need to, and like I said, slice it 50 times before you actually do a print. You know, you slice it, look at it, adjust it. I usually keep cutting the infill down or the support down. When I first do it, and from the default settings, it's usually got support going everywhere, all over it, and I don't want all that. So I start backing it off, reslice, back it off, reslice, back it off, reslice. I keep checking it to see, how much do I really need? And then when I get to some place I like on the Velociraptor, for instance, because it was trying to wrap, um, it was trying to wrap into his mouth, and so I had to keep adjusting him too. I went a degree this way, a degree that way, degree that way, degree that way, until I got it out of his mouth. I kept playing with the angle he had to be at, where it didn't try to put the infill or the support, because it was bringing the support up around his back of his head and into his mouth, and I didn't want that. So I kept backing the support down and changing the angle until I finally got it where I've got good support everywhere, and there's nothing in his mouth, and the proof's in the pudding, because this guy here looks great. There's no his face is great. There's nothing happening in his mouth, and there's no side effects there. There's no bad spots in the print. The print is perfect. This is a fantastic print. It's a little easier to see on the dark blue, and I've already taken the supports off. Now there is a little bit of roughness on the back of his head here. Just a little sandpaper will fix that. The tail is fine. It cleaned right off. The legs, there's a couple of spots on the legs that could use a little sanding, just a minor little touch up, because of him sitting on his back, like this. But other than that, his front claws were, tedious. They're, you had to sit there and really be careful you don't, break his nail off or this, but but it came out really good. So I'm very happy with that. That position, I think, was the best position to print that in, and then that's it, guys. So that's how you do your infill in your in support. You got to just play with it. Don't be afraid to, like I said, don't just they wanted this from the way it came off the file. They wanted it printed upside down like this, which would have came up with this, on the bed, all that waste, and then the whole top surface here would have been a mess. It would have required a ton of sanding. This is untouched. This is the way it came off the printer. I didn't do anything to this model. Even all the supports cleaned off clearly. It does need a little sanding right here on this back edge and the back of the nacelles. I haven't done that yet, but this is actually the way it broke off the supports, and they came out this clean. And the new one's going to come out exactly the same. It printed exactly the same as that one. It looks exactly the same. Here, let's change the camera one more time, and we'll put these two side by side, and you can see that it's duplicatable. It's repeatable. You can print this as many times as you want. It's the same quality every time you print it. You can't ask for anything more than that. And then this I'm going to go ahead and pull off because it was about to fall off anyway. There it is. So that's how clean that came off. My fingernail can chip off the rest of this, and that's there's a little bit of might need a little trim right there, just a tiny bit. Let me pull one of these off. and don't force it. Just take your time. You know, give it a little, you know, nudge here and there, but don't get too crazy. All right, so that I tore that off the back of the cell, and like you can see, there's a little round circle there. There's a little bit of effect on both sides. A little sanding will clean that right up, but that came off pretty clean. And then this, we're going to just kind of wiggle that around. And just use my fingernail. And there you have that. And that came off pretty clean. There's one little spot right there. Okay, and that's what these are for. You use your nippers to grab a hold of that and pull the rest of that off. Just give it a little tug, and there you go. It's gone. And that's what you want. This is the kind of, you know, when you do your supports, you want to minimize them as much as possible. So when you tear them loose, you don't have to do anything. The model's clean. You know, it looks good. You're good to go. And that's the trick. All right, so that's going to do it, guys. Thanks for watching. Comments at the bottom, like, subscribe. Listen, I hope, I like doing live shows, and I would love to do live shows where we can discuss this stuff. You guys can ask me questions. I can answer them. I do a lot of live shows for my RC part of my hobbies, RC airplanes, and I'd love to do live shows with you guys. You know, so you can ask questions and we can talk about it. But you got to subscribe, you know. So I know that you guys want that. So subscribe and drop me a comment that, hey, I want to see a live show. And you know, when I get enough people interested, you know, I'll set it up. We'll pick one night of the week, and in your comment, tell me what night of the week you want it. What night, what time, and I'll try to accommodate that. You know, obviously majority rules. So if I have 3 people that want it on Monday night, but I have 30 people that want it on Friday night, I'm going to be doing Friday night. You know, I mean, that's sorry, but that's just how it's got to go. But yeah, put a comment in the bottom if you want to do a live show. We can print something live and talk about it. You guys can give me a suggestion what you want me to print, and I'll print it and we'll talk about it. We'll discuss supporting, what kind of supports, how much support. We can do all of that on a live show. So subscribe and comment and let me know, and we'll take it to the next level, which is really what I want to do. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this gave you guys some insight on using, you know, the best way to use your support and your infill to both save filament, save time, and get the best results, which is really the key. The main thing here is to get the best result. If you have to add a little more of this to get a better result, well, then that's what you got to do, you know. So, all right. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.